What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is your boy Five Piece, producer and engineer extraordinaire. I just came off of a crazy week. I actually posted my usual video a little bit late because I've actually been moving into a new place. And at the same time as I've been doing that, I've been making some improvements to the studio. You might actually be able to see right now there's a slightly different setup, a new desk, some new speaker configurations, and all that, a couple of new pieces of gear. But I appreciate everybody that's been following me and supporting this journey, for your patience at this time, as I've been obviously dealing with so many things. But with all that being said and out of the way, I really wanted to take some time to shoot this video to elaborate further on my last one. My last video that I dropped was a juicy one all about how to set levels in your mix. And while I did show you one method of doing this, I wanted to actually break down a couple of other ways you could also set levels in your mix to achieve a really nice and cohesive balance. Really, this is going to be one tip that's going to change things for you. And this is actually something that I've been doing more recently. So without further ado, let's get into this content. Are you ready? Let's go. All right, so I got the same session open from that previous video. And again, if you haven't seen that video, I definitely recommend you watch that first. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description below, or there should be a card either now or earlier in this video when I was doing the intro. But either way, it's the same session, and I'm not really going to explain how I set up my tracks. The setup is exactly the same. If you want some more context on that, definitely watch that previous video. But what this technique really revolves around is we're actually going to leave all of our levels, all of our individual track levels at 0. So right now you see my basses, my drums, my instruments, everything is at 0, okay? My groups and master as well, but those should always be set to 0 at the start anyways. And in my previous video, I recommended that you actually take individual levels and balance them and try to obviously get a nice cohesive blend while also sort of paying attention to a couple of other variables and goals that you should have as you're setting levels. Well, those goals are all going to still apply, but what I'm going to suggest in this tip, this technique here, is actually not using the volume fader to set your levels, right? And the reason why is sometimes when you do that, later on you're going to want to do some automation, but then sometimes you do automation and then at the same time you decide, oh, you know what, I should actually make the sound a little bit louder overall. And now you start running into these little issues or roadblocks along the way. Now you got to do even more automation to get things to sit to the level that you want. And I don't always like doing that. It's annoying and tedious, right? So instead, what I like to do is instead of setting my level here, I leave it actually fully at 0. Let's just focus on my kick specifically. And what I'll do is I'll put on a trim or a utility or some sort of gain staging plugin directly on the channel. And in this case, we're going to use iZotope's Relay. And Relay is just one example. You could absolutely use a trim or a utility, like I said. Trim is the stock one in Pro Tools. If you're in Ableton, you use the utility plugin. I'm sure every DAW has some version of that, but all you're really looking for is a plugin that has the actual gain control built into it. And you're going to put this in the first channel on the chain. I like Relay because it gives you a lot of control. It lets you obviously control the volume, lets you control the left and right panning, and it lets you even expand the width. And not only that, it has some advanced features. You can put things into mono, you can switch the phase, you could swap the channels, you even have a built-in filter. I'm not going to say I always use this stuff, but it's definitely handy, and you can understand why I like to use this particular plugin for this job. Now, what I do is I'll actually take this and I'll bring the volume all the way to the lowest setting, minus 60 in this case. And I'll basically copy that onto every single channel. So basically every single channel has this plugin on it, and every channel is set to the lowest volume. So basically you're not even going to hear it, right? It's going to be more or less silent, all right? And this is the same starting point that I suggested you start with in my previous video. Again, highly recommend watching that. If you haven't, this will all make a lot more sense. And now that I've done that, this is actually where I'm going to, start my mix, right? So I actually would use the relay, and remember, my kick volume is set to 0, right? So if I even play just a moment of this, we're not hearing anything. But now the second that I play it and I start turning this up, we're going to obviously start to see the level and obviously hear the kick specifically. right? And not only that, it gives you a nice reading, right? You can see the RMS, you can see the peak. Like this plugin specifically is great because it gives me a lot of control, but you don't need to be fancy. You can literally use a trim or a utility and achieve the exact same thing. But ultimately what I'm suggesting is using this plugin or a trim or utility plugin to set your levels exactly the same way, using the exact same strategy that I proposed in the previous video. And then that way, let's pretend that this is exactly where I want the level to be. I can obviously, let's say that I want to do some automation or something. I can go to my volume automation and easily just increase and decrease sections as I see fit. Of course, I'm doing this at random, but you'd be a lot more calculated and strategic. But the benefit of this is it's not going to, undo anything. The volume and the gain staging really is taking place in the plugin, and I'm leaving my volume fader available and free simply for automation, for final touches. And that's why I like using this method. I absolutely recommend that you do the same thing. Again, adhering to those strategies and goals that I suggested in the previous video, but try this for yourself and let me know if it works in the comments below. So I hope you found this tip helpful. If you did, please smash that like button until it turns blue. Not only will that help me and let me know that you like content like this, but it will also let the YouTube algorithm know that you want to see some more and that it should recommend my content to people like you. I'd really appreciate you doing that. It helps me a lot. And not only that, if you're new here, please consider subscribing to the channel. I drop a video every single week, always focused on helping you sound better and helping you make more money with your music. If you want some help with these areas, definitely pay the fee. Subscribe to the channel. It's free 99. It costs you absolutely nothing to do that. And I would love to continue helping you with my videos. With all that being said, I'm looking forward to helping you guys on the next one. Peace.
5,